Have you ever been called stupid, foolish, naive? That sting, you remember it? Standing there, heart pounding, throat tight, no words. Coming out. Hours later, lying in bed, the perfect replies flood your mind. But it's too late. This wound is deeper than it seems. An insult to your intelligence strikes at your pride, your identity. Most people respond in two ways. Silence that feels like defeat or anger that makes them look weaker. Both hand victory to the attacker. But there is a third way. Today I'll reveal 5 Stoic responses that disarm insults without losing your dignity. And when you hear the third one, you'll never be left speechless again. Response number 1, I'd love to hear your perspective. Imagine this. You've just finished presenting your idea in a meeting. You feel confident, and then a colleague smirks and says, "You clearly don't understand our customers." That idea is naive. The room falls. Silent, eyes on you. Your heart pounds. Most people would rush to defend themselves. No, I did my research and fall into the trap, or they'd shrink into silence, carrying the shame. Both reactions hand power to the attacker. But Sarah, a marketer I once knew, chose a different path. She didn't argue. She didn't panic. She smiled and said calmly, "That's interesting. I'd love to hear your perspective. What do you think our customers are really looking for?" The silence deepened. Now the burden shifted. The attacker had to prove his superiority with facts. He stumbled through vague cliches about young people wanting authenticity, no evidence, no data. Sarah pressed gently. "Could you give a specific example?" And with that, his empty argument collapsed. The entire room saw who truly understood the customers and who was only hiding behind arrogance. This is not a comeback. It's strategy. It's the very method Socrates used, questioning until false wisdom crumbled. The Stoics taught, true intelligence is shown not by boasting, but by curiosity and the willingness to learn. So next time someone attacks your intelligence, don't fight or freeze. Breathe and say, "I'd love to hear your perspective. What am I missing?" One simple question, respectful but firm. It flips the script, transforming you from the target of insult into the leader of the conversation. And in that reversal, your dignity and your strength shine. Response number 2. Help me understand your reasoning. Picture this. A tense project meeting. You've just laid out your cost-saving proposal. The numbers are clear. The plan makes sense. And then your boss smirks, shakes his head, and says loudly, "That's a dumb idea. You clearly don't understand budgets in this industry." The room freezes. All eyes on you. Most people either snap back in anger or sink into silence, humiliated. Both give victory to the attacker. But Mike, an engineer I once knew, chose calmly. He said, "Help me understand your reasoning." Which specific part of the budget am I overlooking, my sen? The air shifted. The boss now had to defend his words. But when pressed, he could only throw out vague lines about industry standards. No data, no logic. Mike didn't flinch. He leaned forward, steady, and asked, "Which standards exactly, and how do they apply here?" Each question exposed the weakness of the insult. By the end, it was clear the rejection wasn't based on reason. It was emotion disguised as authority. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone shows you your mistake, gladly change. But if they cannot, hold firm." That's the essence here. Instead of reacting with emotion, demand logic. If they're right, you learn. If they're wrong, their emptiness is revealed, and you keep your dignity. So next time someone dismisses you, don't fight. Don't fold. Look them in the eye and ask, "Help me understand your reasoning. What exactly am I missing? One sentence, calm but commanding. It lifts you above the insult. It shows the room that while others argue with emotion, you stand anchored in reason. Response number 3. That's an interesting assumption. What led you to that conclusion? Imagine this. You're at a dinner party. The discussion turns to economics. You share a thought and a guest snaps. You clearly don't know much if you believe that. Most people rush to defend themselves, listing degrees, jobs, books they've read. They scramble to prove their intelligence, and in doing so, they give away their power. David, a friend of mine, chose differently. He smiled, steady and calm, and said, "That's an interesting assumption. What led you to that conclusion?" The room shifted. Suddenly, the attacker had to justify himself, but there was nothing solid behind the insult, only arrogance. He mumbled vague lines about David's point being simplistic. David leaned in unshaken. Which part seemed simplistic? I'd really like to understand. And just like that, the roles reversed. The critic was now the one under examination. His reasoning was empty. The insult collapsed under its own weight. This is the Stoic way. Epictetus taught, test every impression before you grant it your belief. Don't accept someone's judgment as truth. Challenge it. Question it. Most insults are only assumptions, and assumptions are fragile. When you calmly expose their weakness, you reveal your strength without anger, without defense. So the next time someone sneers at your intelligence, don't fight. Don't justify. Simply breathe and ask. That's an interesting assumption. What led you to that conclusion? EO. A single question. Respectful but firm. It flips the script, transforming you from the target into the examiner. And in that silence, everyone will see where the real intelligence truly lies. Response number 4. I find it interesting when people lead with personal attacks. Picture this. A heated team meeting. Tension high. Jennifer suggests a new approach to client communication. Before she even finishes, a colleague cuts in. That's stupid. You clearly don't get how this industry works. The words sting. The room freezes. Most people would fight back or shrink down, embarrassed, but Jennifer did neither. She stayed calm, looked him in the eye, and said, I find it interesting when people lead with personal attacks instead of addressing the actual issue. The air shifted instantly. Everyone in the room saw it. She wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. She was analyzing behavior like a scientist observing a case. Suddenly, the attacker looked small, unprofessional, petty. Jennifer looked strong, composed, intelligent. And then she added, still calm. I'm still open to discussing the strategy. What specific concerns do you have? She had lifted the conversation back to substance while exposing the weakness of his approach. This is Stoic detachment in action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when others act wrongly, observe and remain true to your own character. By naming the attack, Jennifer took away its power. By refusing to fight on the same level, she rose above it. The entire room learned in that moment personal insults reveal more about the attacker than the target. So the next time someone dismisses you with contempt, don't meet them with anger. Don't meet them with silence. Step above it, smile and say, I find it interesting when people lead with personal attacks instead of addressing the issue. It reframes the battle. It makes their insult look weak, and it proves to everyone watching where the real maturity lies. Response number 5. I appreciate you sharing your perspective. Now imagine this. A family gathering. The table crowded, voices rising. Maria shares her thoughts on the family business. Suddenly, her brother cuts in, mocking. You're not smart enough to understand this. Leave the finances to the adults. The room tenses. Everyone waits for her reaction. Anger would spark a fight. Silence would look like surrender. But Maria did something else. She smiled gently and said, "I appreciate you sharing your perspective." Then she turned to her uncle and continued the discussion, as if nothing had happened. Her brother was left stunned. There was no anger to fuel him, no shame. To exploit, just grace, quiet, steady, unshakable. And in that silence, the power shifted. The family saw clearly who carried dignity and who relied on insult. This is ultimate confidence. To treat an insult not as a wound, but as just another opinion in the air. Seneca wrote, "It is not what others say of you, but how you respond that reveals your character." By acknowledging the attack without resistance, Maria showed she was untouchable. She refused to let words dictate her worth, and in doing so, she made her brother's aggression look childish. This response doesn't fight. It doesn't defend. It dissolves the attack by refusing to give it weight. So next time someone questions your intelligence, try it. Smile, breathe, and say, "I appreciate you sharing your perspective." Those words send a signal stronger than any comeback. They say, "I know who I am. I don't need your approval. I cannot be shaken." And in that calmness, your true power shines brighter than any insult could ever dim. Conclusion. These 5 responses are not tricks. They are a way of life, a Stoic way of standing unshaken. Each time you use them, you protect your mind, and you train it to be free, untouchable, unbreakable. Epictetus said, "No one can disgrace you without your consent." Seneca reminded us, "Your dignity is revealed not by what others say, but by how you respond." So test yourself. Next time someone insults you, choose one of these responses, and then return here. Share your story. Write this below as your vow. I choose dignity over insult.